I want to go ahead and I want to go into chop mode. Now we know our sample is 4 bars or 16 beats, so we want to chop it up into quarter notes. You can actually chop this up to as many samples as you want, up to 128, but since we know our sample is 4 bars, we want to go in multiples of 4. So by default, it's going to give you regions, 16 regions. So that's what I want to chop it up at. Since I know I got 16 beats, I want to have 16 slices, one for each beat, which is slicing at quarter notes or quarter bars. Okay, so we can go ahead and audition these. So as you might have noticed, it sounds a little bit sloppy. That's because this sample was played, by humans, live musicians, a band. So each quarter note is going to be a slightly different length and time than each other. It's not perfect. So therefore, your slices aren't going to line up on the transients by default. So using a sample like this, you don't want to use something like auto chop, which is what this is doing by default. You want to use auto chop for samples that were created in a machine like this or SP1200 or some type of computerized beat machine, which a lot of 80s samples were created on these types of machines. But for stuff like this from the 70s and earlier, most of that stuff is all played by live bands. So, it's not going to line up to your slices automatically. So you got to do some tweaking. So that's what we're going to go ahead and do. So I like to start off by leaving link slices on. What link slices on is going to do is when I move the start of one sample, is going to or one slice is going to move the endpoint of the adjacent slice or the next slice, or the one before it. So that's the way I like to start off. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to start with my second slice because my first one is already trimmed up to where I want it. So let's just go through these and we're going to tighten these up to the transient. So we're going to zoom in a little bit and get nice and close. And I'm only going to rock with the start point on all of them, and you'll see how quick it is to do that. Now, I don't like to go up tight on the transient because you can end up cutting a piece off, or you can have like a pop noise and a click noise because it's just not as clean. And it also makes it sound a little too stiff. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a little bit more. And I'm going to just give it a little bit of breathing room. Not too much. Right there is about good, so. Now on a slice like this, it might get a little tricky because it's a stereo sample. Sometimes the left and right transients aren't aligned because, they use multiple microphones for recording these samples. So you might get tricked by something like this by thinking, oh, maybe the snare starts here or does it start here? Basically, the way to figure this out is It's just basically by using your ears. You can try here and listen to it, see if that's your snare. From listening to that, it tells me that, my snare is being chopped off. So this is actually the start of my snare. And that's where I would chop that one. And just move right along. Now you can see for most of these slices, I'm rocking with the 100 sample Q-Link, which is pretty much a nice general Q-Link for pretty much all adjustments. Sometimes you might need to go a little finer when you getting tight up on them, but for the most part, this will be your go-to Q-Link. So let me just finish up the rest of these. All right, so we got all our slices. Let's zoom back out and let's go ahead and audition them. All right, so that sounds a lot better. Things sound more, aligned properly. And you can see how quick that was to slice that up, having link slices on. Now, link slices on prevents you from being able to overlap your slices. So now that you have the slices you want, you can go ahead and turn your link slices off. And now you can go back and have your slices overlap. So let's zoom back in on, let's start with this one. So right now, where this slice ends is where this one begins. Turning link slices off, we can change that. So I can make this sample actually end anywhere I want from, here on. So I can actually go back with it, make it shorter, which would leave this gray area completely unused. And you can see this one is still where I set it before. Or I can go this way with it and I can overlap it as far as I want. So I can actually make this sample go halfway through the next one. And you can do that, with any sample you want. The reason I like to do that last is because if you do this immediately, you're going to have to adjust the start and end points of all your samples, from the beginning to get them where you want them, which is going to take you pretty much twice as long as doing it the way I first demonstrated it, because you're going to be adjusting two slice markers per chop as opposed to one. So, you might not want to have all your slices overlap each other. You might only want one or two to overlap. You might not want any at all. So you would just leave link slices on indefinitely. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn that back on, and it's gonna move my slices back to where I want. So we're gonna go ahead and convert this now and discuss the conversion option.